which is, you already know, our quiz master, Manish. Manish, the virtual stage is now yours to host.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you everyone for sharing this e-stage with me. So let me quickly introduce everyone to the audience. And audience, you can see my screen. So we have a Mr. Guljeet from the ACCELQ. He's a chief product, and we have a Bhagyesh. He is a solution engineer from Katalon, and we have a Jonas. He's a marketing director and co-founder of ASKUI, and we have a KR. Mr. KR, he is a founder and the CEO of Testsigma. And last but not least, we have Oliver. He's a API developer, full stack developer. So welcome you all. So before starting, let me give you some housekeeping, which is important. Okay. So I'm going to discuss and ask randomly questions, which will we conclude what is our topic is today. Is codeless automation is the next wave or what? So if you feel you can jump in the question in between also. Okay. And for audience, I would say please join from the lobby to this session. If you have any questions, and I'm expecting you might be having more questions because this is, I believe, very good chance to discuss with the most of the speaker in a one go. So you can join the session from the lobby and you can ask the question in a Q&A box. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm just stopping my screen so that I can see everyone now. Okay, cool. So thank you. So, you know, since yesterday we are just talking about the codeless. So I got some different terms in my mind, like is it scriptless? It's a no code. It's a low code, or what is it? Is a codeless? So means these are the very things which comes in my mind. So the codeless automation is the next big thing, which is you say the world of automation testing. And now using it, the tester can now save a lot of time by automating the process and writing and running the test script. So this is what I understand, and most of the people also understand. So begin this discussion, I would like to ask Mr. Guljeet. Okay, so if I say yes, the codeless automation is the next wave. So what is the mechanism behind the codeless automation test and how it works?
Sure, Manish. Thanks for having me, and good start to this discussion, right? So and you rightly said, there have been many words before codeless, right? I think it all started back in the days with scriptless.
Yeah.
There are a lot of folks here who've been in the QA field for a long time. I don't know if Mercury rings a bell, right? One of the earlier automation tools, and scriptless was a similar wave back, I think almost going 20 years or 2 decades back, right? And I think it's not just the name change, but one of the reasons why that wave did not really pick up as much as it should have was, even though tools were called scriptless, right, in reality, the moment they hit any complexity, it needed some code injection, some script writing, right? And even scriptless tools, so to say, were more record and playback, right? But then the moment you required real world automation, like handling business rules, validations, right, or any kind of dynamic UI, it needed some kind of custom scripting. There were some tools which needed some VB scripting, some other tools which needed some other language scripting, and so on. So it was not truly codeless. It was scriptless, so to say, from a record and playback standpoint. And that's why a lot of testers, just fled towards open source based frameworks, because, what is the point if I'm going for a tool and if I have to write my own custom code and injections? It kind of defeats the purpose, right? And then you have to write, modularity, reusability framework. So I think codeless is kind of refreshing that world, right? In truly bringing that, yes, if a tool is codeless, it should truly be codeless. It should be able to handle, all kinds of complexities and changing technology landscape.
Okay, so Yeah, nicely said. Means even kind of agree to that as well. So now I will move to the KR for the next question. Okay, so let's understand how much it's beneficial and it is, and how it's helping to the industry. Means the codeless.
uh, in the like modern DevOps and Agile principles, right? And the quality has become everyone's responsibility. Let me start with that, right? And you cannot simply blame a QA or
Yeah.
like automation engineer, say like, okay, why are this well, right? And it's really important to have that. I mean, like the testing has been integrated throughout the cycle, right? Right from the design to, and that means like multiple stakeholders are involved in the entire process. So one of the very key objectives of having a codeless or scriptless, what I preferred calling it low code,
Low
because
code.
as Guljeet rightly said, right, we cannot. It's a very long tail problem. You cannot solve everything with a codeless approach. You need a certain degree of like the customizations or extendability of the platform. That I'll come back to that, like if I get a chance to talk about that topic. But to begin with, yes, it is going to help everyone to bring on board. Like as I said, like the roles are completely redefined now. Even a PM has to do his own testing, right? The UAT before it goes to the production, and it has to be super fast and effective and consistent, right? So that means there needs to be an approach like through which you can automate all that regular stuff that you would be doing, right? I would say like it is going to help everyone bring on board, right? And like now, like the QA systems are opened up, right? And it's not just that only test automations would understand this scripting.
Mm-hmm.
So with the unification, unified approach, so we use simple English-based approach. I think most of this, the platform that we have has almost similar approach. That's what I would prefer. I mean, I would like to highlight that like it's a unified approach now that everyone can understand what's happening within the quality systems. It's very easy to take that informed decision than like just relying on the I mean, I don't want to say this a proxy, but like automation testing team has been a proxy for many teams, right? And the QA team would go to them to see like what is happening, even if there is a failure. There is no clarity on what is happening in test automation. Test automation has been seen as an isolated solution even now if you go with the completely custom built stacks. So this approach will definitely help companies bring the transparency across all the systems with respect to that quality.
Quality. Okay. So I got one word from your discussion that you said the speed. So speed is what means execution or the writing the code means where we.
It's both, right? And it's both. It's not just execution, right? And it's really important to, I mean, we talk about all this in sprint or shift left, all of that, right? And even there, the speed comes into picture or speed matters. And after all of that effort, right, you still need some kind of a power to speed up your execution. It's both. It's not just one. It needs to be both.
Yeah.
I would also like to add one point over there. When it comes to speed, when we are speaking about speed, I guess writing code is the one aspect. We always want our test scripts to be designed as fast as possible. But at the same time, if we can make use of code reusability as well, that would further enhance our script. Like if I have an end-to-end test script, I don't need to go through the login page back again and again. If I'm recording the objects, I would be able to make use of that code back again. And in terms of execution as well, where we see that these organizations, the big organizations, are trying to fasten up their release cycle. In this terms, we would like execution just to be as fast as possible. So let's say developer raises a PR and this PR is redirected to the main branch. Now, before merging this PR, all our tests should trigger and they should complete the execution fast as well. And here we come up to the concept of the parallel execution. So I think most of the automation tools, the codeless automation tools that we call them, are performing the parallel execution as well. They are giving that capability to perform the parallel execution, but that is something that should be made more simple, I guess. If it is simple, then it is easy for everyone to execute the parallel execution. You can just select the box for parallel execution. You can specify the number of threads that you would like to run. The same approach which was being used in the TestNG or let's say JUnit 4, JUnit 5, we can take the same approach for that. And if these test cases are running across on multiple browsers, devices, operating system at the same time, we are sure that we are not leaking any code, any bug to the production. We can't be 100% sure, but we can tend to be 100% sure.
Yeah, and thanks, Bhagyesh, to come in this. Even my next question, which I supposed to ask after the this, but since we are discussing this, so I have a question with to Jonas. Means As I see, means everyone is chasing nowadays in sprint automation. So what do you think that means? Is it be achievable from the codeless script, or means even we can achieve it from the traditional way of automating an application, or it is a faster way to do this?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So I guess with codeless automation, it is, I feel like you can do a lot of things, but it also has limitations to have like a opposite standpoint maybe, because I also think that not everything should be tried to be automated in a codeless manner. I think you can also go with some kind of like, that's why I like the comment before that it's also like low code, and you also can jump in if you want to have the flexibility of code. I think the best use case for codeless automation is actually if you want to set up a good automation start point where you can run every time in your CI pipeline, and then try to add flexibility. And you need the people actually who know how to write good tests, and codeless is not solving that problem for you. So you need to be a good tester, and you need to understand everything. And then it can help you fast in writing the test because it has like everything already set in place. And that's, I think, where the best benefit of it is.
Okay, thanks for this. So now next, as you said, we have some limitations. So I would like to understand from Bhagyesh, means we are seeing that waves is forming. So do you see that it would be the hurdle and it might impact the momentum of this wave? Means anything which can become as a hurdle to say the next wave is automation, codeless test.
So I think hurdle would form up in almost everything. That's a very good question, Manish. I'd start by greeting audience a very good morning and taking out time on the Sunday. I think I'll discuss one hurdle, which would help us relate to this scenario as well. I created 5 alarms just to wake up in this morning, and it's a Sunday morning. It's not difficult for me to just get up from the bed. And I think that was the hurdle. My mind was not allowing me to wake up, considering that it's on Sunday. Similarly, there would be multiple hurdles that would be there in the face of the codeless automation as well. Now, when we talk about the hurdle, we are looking for the solution that should be completely codeless. Now, we are tending towards it. As Jonas mentioned, that there are certain things that we still need to do. We need to manually intervene. We need to write script. We need to modify things. But that's just a journey. Like when we were initially thinking about self-driving cars, no one of us thought that that is something which is possible. And if we go 3 to 4 decades back, or let's say we jump on to centuries back, we might have not even thought of a car as an object that could exist in this universe, that could take you from one place to another. The same is with the codeless automation, I believe. Now, there are certain hurdles to it. I would like to highlight these hurdles. So first of all, I'd like to focus it. When people say that you are performing tests, you're not writing code. I strongly disagree against that point. When we are writing test scripts, I've used multiple frameworks like Selenium, Playwright, Puppeteer, etc. I've seen in Selenium, we are making use of map to pass the object of the desired capabilities. We are making use of list to store the value that we are retrieving from our test cases. And we are using stack just to check for the deep links, whether they are working or not in a specific fashion. Similarly, we are making use of multi-thread as well for the parallel execution. So just to define that, we are already performing programming, but the major hurdle which is out over there, which is here, is the flexibility versus the simplicity. Now, most of the people that come up to me would tell whether your tool performs integration with this thing, or do we have integration with that aspect, because we are already using that. So let's say if they're using Jira for bug tracking, they would ask whether you integrate with Jira. And Jira is just a single example. When we talk about bug tracking, there are lots of tools that are available in market. When we talk about CI/CD, there are lots of tools available in market. So the major problem is integration. If we extend the flexibility, simplicity would have to trade off. That's the universal principle. And along with that, I think the next generation future tool should be a one-stop testing solution for all. Codeless automation tools allow you to schedule tests if they're automation tool. Why would you use bug tracking if there's an inbuilt bug tracking tool as well, which is being provided by a codeless automation tool? So speaking about the next generation tool that would have these qualities as well. Along with that, I think the major hurdle that we see these days is when we talk about vendors, as I was telling that we need a one-stop testing solution. When we talk about remote execution, people prefer to use third-party vendors for the remote execution. But what happens is procuring the licenses, managing all these licenses all together becomes a pain. So if we have a solution that would be able to basically do all the tasks along with the codeless automation, which makes integration very much easier, which makes the release pipeline flow very much easier, then that would be something that would be great.
Yeah. So very descriptive and relative to this. So I can see there are some hurdles, but yeah, everyone wants to understand means how the industry expert is working on that. So before in detail going to that, means I have another question for the Guljeet. So as we are considering the codeless is the next wave and everyone is thinking about it. So means how it is fit for the case where we talk about the ROI, because most of the management and the people they always say the ROI. So how do you say means and feel that it is best fit for that?
Yeah, Manish, and it goes back a little bit to kind of, what RK also was talking about, right? Speed, right? So at the end of the day, if we even take a step back from just quality assurance, I mean, our release velocity has been increasing, right? Over the past 5 to 8 years, if we see, right? Whether we started with kind of, agile methodology in terms of development, the end goal of what our businesses needed out of our technology departments and out of our technology was faster releases, right? We saw back in the days the release velocity of applications for bigger organizations used to be once a year. Then that started dropping to twice a year. It started coming to once a quarter, and now applications need to have certain updates going almost on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And if that's the speed my business needs in terms of the release velocity, I mean, testing has to have that level of speed, right? So if you think about it, testing and automation, especially automation, was more of a luxury when the release velocity was so slow. But now it's on the critical path, right? And applications no longer can just be happy by meeting functional requirements, right? That if my app just works to conform to its requirement, that's not going to be good enough, right? It has to meet a lot more than that. It has to meet the user experience. It has to be intuitive. It has to be equally well adopted and so on, right? So the requirements against which I need to test are a lot more, and it's a lot faster, right? So that's kind of the underlying reason of why codeless is picking up more and more, because if you're racking up more and more technical debt, at the end of the day, you're going to hit a scalability challenge, right? And then the other aspect of it is, one is speed. The other aspect is, just like in retail world, there is an app for everything. In the enterprise world, there is an app for everything now, right? Earlier, we had just a handful of packaged applications, SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft, one CRM application, but now there is an app for everything. So if my organization is adopting so many apps, right, and the reason they're going to these apps is they don't want to rebuild all of these apps for right, you can easily go and get an app which is configurable enough, which can suit my business needs. So if you think about it, if I'm buying an app as an organization, why am I going to write tons and tons of code to test? I need something which is equally configurable, equally codeless. So I think it just makes sense in terms of where technology is moving to have automation also go codeless.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks. And yeah, it's depend. And so we have Oliver with us, and he's a very expert into the API. So I have a few questions related to specific API for him. So Oliver, what is API first and its benefit for the IT project? So could you please help with that?
Yes, I would like to pick up some keywords I've heard already, like integration, speed, and hurdles for development and QA tests. And API First provides actually a solution for that, because it provides a standard that you can use, and as soon as you do that, API First means you design first. You have first the design of an API. I'm talking about REST API mainly. Coding for a REST API, and that helps you a lot to use tools that can handle that. And that means you really speed up development. You have shift left testing, means shift left means you can start with your QA tests immediately after you start development. And that means you can immediately provide feedback to the business and to the testers. They see what the API is, and you can use a lot of tools to test and developments, and makes it actually possible to integrate tools and automation into your project. Because otherwise, I had projects like 100 APIs. How are you going to test them? You don't write tests manually for 100 API endpoints. You want to automate that. And here comes API First. You have a standard like OpenAPI. You define the API, and then you can use tools to automate the complete QA test, and that speeds up a lot development. So the option to have shift left testing QA from the very beginning of a project.
Yeah. So yeah, anyhow, this is integration, and we need something as a complete. So in order to understand more on this, so is API First codeless, or it's a low code platform?
API First is mainly a standard, and that means you can use tools. You can use tools. You can use tools and automate the complete process. That doesn't mean you don't have possible level as much as possible. As I said, with 100 APIs, you don't want to do that all that manually. And if you have a standard like OpenAPI, because you are using API First in your project, you can use tools to create the tests automatically. And that means you don't need a script. You don't need to write a script for every 100 API endpoints. You can automate it with a tool. Tools like Postman, Ida Etelam, for which we had a session yesterday. And then you have reduced you need to just, but you have automated to the best possible level.
Yeah, I might missed in last sentence. There might be some network issue. Could you come again, last sentence? I'm not sure whether everyone is facing the
so
same.
if you're using you're using API First, you have standards like OpenAPI, and with that you can use tools to automate the creation of QA. And that means you have the lowest level of scripting that is possible.
Okay. So to understand, your answer is it's a low code, not a codeless. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, moving back to
yes.
Yeah. So I'm moving back to the Jonas. So in order to adopting codeless automation product, what are some others way you see the companies are reaching great level of the test automation?
All right, thank you. So you mean, I'm not sure if I got the question correctly. You mean like in adapting codeless automation, what are some ways to do it, or?
Yeah, in addition to adopting the codeless automation products, means what are some other ways the companies are looking, means or they are reaching to that level?
Yeah, so first of all, if you have a team trying to implement test automation software, so first of all, there's the step to choosing what kind of tool I want. So it's I guess it depends on how the team is structured actually. So what kind of do I have like automation engineers in place which try to automate with code tools, or do I have like a lot of testers which try to be faster with codeless tools, or they are not able to write good automation tools? And then it depends on the team which kind of requirements they have, what kind of skills they have actually. And then you should write down, or you should write down a list actually of tools you want to have, like what are your requirements. If you want to fasten the process, codeless can help actually with that. So you can look into all of different kind of codeless tools, get a feature list of them, or try them out, like see what they can do, and actually what my application does and what kind of automation needs I have. So this is helping. But you should also consider if you have some people writing code, or you should also talk to the developers. So I think it's most important in choosing those tools that you talk to a lot of developers or like all kind of stakeholders within the team. So you understand also their needs, their thoughts on it, because sometimes it's not just done by choosing a codeless tool from the tester standpoint and then using it. You need to make clear what it can help with, and you need to like validate before you actually implement it on that. And I think it makes sense to also evaluate coding tools and coding frameworks, as they might still be in place, maybe not in the future. But yeah, so I think you should try to map down the landscape of all kind of possible solutions and then discuss them in the team. And I think this is the way to choose a tool.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'm coming back to now KR. Okay, so see, this question I believe is most of the people having in mind. So as companies are adopting the codeless, is there any effect on the SDET role?
Okay, so for this, right, I'll have to take a step back, right? Can we really be completely codeless, right? And as I said, like fundamentally, I would still prefer to agree with Jonas as well, right? And that you still need certain degree of coding effort or customizations that are required, must to have. As I said, like it's a very long tail problem, right? And let's say you might have, or any companies would have, like 90% of their testing requirements are very common, right? The 10% is very unique, no matter what we do from a vendor, like from our side, right? We'll not be able to fill that 10% gap at all, right? And that's what we have seen so far with all our customers, right? And we were able to deliver the codeless test automation platform for 90% of their testing requirements. But the 10%, which is very unique, like how can we build, like no matter what we bring in, right? And build, like even if we use AI, ML, whatever it is, right? You still need that freedom or flexibility to extend the platform for their custom requirements. So there is a role for them to play and customize or extend the platform as per their requirements, as per the company requirements. And at the same time, what is really required or important here is to enable the quality analysts, right, and who understand the functionality, who know it better in terms of like testing or improving the quality, right? So that is what is really important. So SDET should be there to enable, to help this quality analyst to make it better and much faster.
Yeah, so it's really true, and I'm also agreed that means since it is a not codeless, it's a low means low
that's
code.
What I feel. That's what I believe. Like so broadly, there are two kinds of tools, right? One is completely custom built stack, and a low code or no code test automation platforms. And both there is a role to play for SDETs. Yeah,
correct. So so before moving to the next question, which I going to ask, and so I was just researching and I was just doing some before coming to this panel discussion. So what I found that there is a company called the Future Marketing Insight. You might be knowing about it. So they did one research on the codeless and in the various aspect and the kind of, and then they concluded the demand of codeless testing will be raised at least by the 15.5% CAGR between 2021 and 2031. So what is the CAGR? It's a compound annual growth rate. So which caught my attention, and I believe that means, yeah, it's going to be in a next wave. So we are here to discuss that wave. So now my question is to Bhagyesh. Means, so what are the things that are not being offered? Because see, everyone has some limitation capabilities or limitation for that. So I want to understand what are the things we are not offered, and which is added would be lead to this wave to next level.
Got that, got that. So just to add on that part, we were discussing about the codeless automation. It is going to be a next big thing, and the return on investment that people are getting with the automation. As per the survey which was conducted by us, which was termed as State of Quality Survey, I think 85% of people reported that they are getting a very great return on investment on automation. Now, there are certain question and answers in chat box as well that tell why should we adopt onto automation when we are capable of doing those things manually as well. But coming back onto the topic, I think there are lots of things that are missing. There are different competitors, vendors that are offering a complete different solution. Now, when we spoke about the things that are missing, first thing would be flexibility. Now, no one would be able to provide integration with all of the third-party vendors that are there in the market. I think you would agree with me on that part. The second thing that would come up would be the support for data-driven approach. Now, when we speak about testing, our main intention should be to create a single test case and then make use of data to run the test case across multiple scenarios. So support for data-driven testing. Now, when we speak about testing and when we are specifically speaking about codeless automation tools, it is a way which would make it easier for everyone to adapt to testing. So QAs would be focusing more on developing edge cases, and thereby support for BDD would be the next thing that would come into the picture, so that business people also understand what a specific test scenario is doing. So support for BDD is lagging somewhere, and there are multiple tools. Katalon provides the support for BDD as well as data-driven approach. The code reusability is the another factor. Now we see multiple tools that allow you to perform end-to-end testing, but let's say if you change the test scenario, you can't make use of the same code that you had written previously or the same steps that you have created previously. So code reusability would be the another parameter that we could work upon. And interestingly, when we speak about AI and ML, AI and ML have lots of capabilities, lots of potential that are yet to be unfolded. So when we speak about the self-driving cars that I've taken an example of, or I completely agree on to the other panelists as well that were saying that we cannot achieve 100% codeless automation, but what we could achieve as per my view is 99% codeless automation. So that is something that we should tend towards to. As of now, I think AI and ML are only being used for certain purposes, like when we talk about self-healing mechanism, we are using AI and ML, and in certain aspects it is being used. But let's imagine a scenario where I'm capable of giving a site map and I just list out certain scenarios. I train my model for the specific scenarios. It automatically populates all the data. And for those scenarios, it runs those scenarios with the data that it has created. So that would be the use of AI and ML at its true worth. It would basically take your sitemap and would possibly perform all the scenarios that would be performed. Let's say it's login, let's say it's log out, let's say it's checking end-to-end testing flow, let's say it's using different credentials, invalid credentials. That would be again part of the data creation which is taking place. So I think that would be there. And I think achieving this use case would require us to add all the features that are currently being offered by end-to-end testing frameworks. And in addition to that, we should have to build other features on the top. So people say that why should not we make use of Selenium? It is more flexible. But what if I say that we have a tool to offer that gives you all the features that are being provided by these end-to-end testing frameworks, and on the top of that, it gives you multiple additional features. And thereby we can see in the market share as well, the popularity of Selenium is decreasing because codeless automation is, I believe, the very big wave that is going to come in. It's just like, as of now, we are not in that maturity level. The industry is not in that maturity level, but we have already started tending towards it. So when I'm not quite sure about the other tools, but when we talk about Katalon, all the pointers that I mentioned, the self-healing mechanism, the data-driven approach, approach, the BDD approach that we can make use of, as well as lots of aspects are being provided in here. So I think that would be the future of the codeless automation.
Yeah, I believe means there are not ton of things, but there are things which need to be add on to the such tools to make a very perfect and next level of the wave. Okay, so
Manish, I would like to
yeah.
add one small thing. So
Yeah.
now that self-driven cars was mentioned a couple of times,
Uh-huh.
so it is like we have two modes, right? And one is completely self-driven cars and cars running in autopilot mode. We are in the current stage, so the ideal. The working model for now is the cars running in autopilot mode, where used cars are the systems in ideal conditions and you pitch in where you really need to pitch in, right? And where in the difficult situations. So, and keep investing on making the self-driven cars reality. So that is what I would say should happen even in this automation industry as well. Just start with autopilot mode with all this low-code approach, and then invest your time and efforts to get to completely autonomous testing. That's our completely self-driven cars.
Yeah, I also agree on that part.
Yes, true. So guys, we got lots of questions from the audience as well, so I would stop my question here and let's go with the audience question now. And means I would say I was not call any name, means you guys can pick as you want, but I will try to ask and point it out as well if I feel that could be the more relevant for the person's profile. Okay, so first question we got it from the Preet Patel, and so he asking how's automation testing take place of manual testing when I am having the test following scenario in my app. Example, there the user list and I am having the test. User data is not duplicating after the pagination or by any way.
So I believe the question around here is comparing manual testing with automation testing, and that there's a scenario that is given out over there. They just need to check whether the user data, if they're entering it, whether it is duplicating or not. So that is quite simple to perform with the automation testing as well. Like when you enter in the user data, you can get in the view page source, and the user data that you just enter would get populated in the DOM as well inside the text field once you enter it, and you can confirm whether it is properly being entered there. So that is something that you could do. That is quite easy to achieve.
Okay, thanks. So now the next question we have is how codeless test automation helps overcome conventional test automation challenges. So, Mr. Guljeet.
So yeah, I think that's a good question. That other than one of the biggest myths is codeless will limit the flexibility, which has been true because traditionally that's how the scriptless tools have evolved, right? But one of the biggest challenges with traditional automation has always been maintenance, right? Because the moment you scale up your automation, the technical debt is way too much, right? So that's an obvious challenge that codeless can put more efficiency in. The other aspects are what was mentioned earlier. It brings more visibility, right? Traditional automation has always been a black box, right? In terms of what are the scripts which relates to which business processes, what is the exact traceability. So the new codeless world of automation brings direct visibility to what is being tested. And at the end of the day, why are we creating all these regression tests and all kinds of different tests, right? Because you want to be able to smartly test, right? So you want to know exactly what to test when a particular change impact is happening, or a new project or a new release is going live, right? So these are a couple of low-hanging fruits in terms of traditional automation to what codeless can bring.
Codeless, yeah. Thank you. So let me ask next question to. So in our organization, code of test sometime become a documentation of app functionality. How codeless tool can respond for this requirement? I guess you're on mute. If
So see, the moment when we say codeless, right? These are like very, as I said, like for example, all these codeless tools, like anybody can use, right? And eventually, all these codeless test automation tools would become a test management tool as well, so that like you really don't need to worry about maintaining that visibility, or at least the simplicity in understanding this test. So I think that's something that codeless test automation tools would solve by default by its nature. Right?
Yeah. Thank you. So we have a next question, anonymous. Why I use any of the automation tool to test the scenarios, those I can test manually in 1/4 time as compared to the automation. So he has given an example of screen login is screen. So Jonas.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I guess it comes down to the point how often you want to test it. So if you repeatedly test in the CI pipeline like every day, or if you have to test like login screen every few minutes for a lot of cases, it just makes sense to automate it. I mean, everything which is repeated should be automated in a way, and that's the simple answer, I guess.
Thank you. So next question.
I would also like to add one pointer there, Manish.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So when we talk about a single login test scenario, here the person who has posted in question has been assuming that he is running it across on a single browser. But let's say if this is the actual scenario where we have to push this code onto the production, we won't be running it against a single browser. We would be running it against multiple devices, operating system, browser combinations. And yeah, if you perform all these test cases manually against all these combinations, that is going to be a monotonous task. So I think automation testing would clear that way as well, would make things more easier when it comes to scalability, when it comes to coverage. That would be a single time where you would be writing a code, and then you can run it across on different browsers, operating system, devices, and be rest assured that everything is working great on all the devices that are being used by your customer as depicted by the analytics team.
Agreed. Even I also want to understand from you all means what we are doing for the NFR means non-functional requirement. So means do you guys feel that means are we going with these integrations with the codeless tools, and means it could be the future where we will have a performance test and security and everything in one package. So anyone can
certainly. Yeah, I think certainly that's definitely the path which we are on with codeless. I mean, functional testing has always been kind of the primary majority of what we test. So that's that's being handled right now with so many platforms and tools out there, and the wave of codeless testing coming. Right, but I can already see a lot of progress happening in the non-functional area with accessibility testing, performance security testing, and so on. Also going that route for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take some other question from the audience. So is codeless automation beneficial for the tester, especially those who are still learning the automation?
Yeah, I think then these tools are perfectly meant for you. Like, I believe that the testers of UA should depict more responsibilities or more attention towards writing test cases, because we see that business make lots of loss in case if there's a bug that is getting leaked onto the production. And when we talk about the principles of testing, the very first principle is exhaustive testing is not possible, which means you can't test all the 100% modules, no matter how much you try to cover on. There are always going to be certain scenarios that you're going to miss. So the goal of tester or QA should be to cover all these edge cases. And when it comes to automation, you can use end-to-end testing frameworks like Selenium, Cypress as well. But why to invest such an ample amount of time when you have something known as codeless? So codeless is very easy to use, and I think all the people in the panel would agree to this. We just basically allow you to record your test steps. When you record those test steps, you basically run those test steps on the different browsers, depending upon what browsers you are choosing. And thereby it eliminates the need of understanding a scenario. As long as you have got the test data, as long as you know, okay, this is the scenario that I want to execute, things are very much simpler. There's no need to write code, or there's no need to learn anything. It will basically enable BAs or testers or the product managers to perform testing. So persona won't matter as long as you are able to understand the scenario and identify what are the test data requirements. You should be good with doing that.
Okay. So we have a next question. So how can we handle certain test scenarios that cannot be automated using the codeless automation? So Guljeet. Okay.
I mean, I would want to challenge that, right? I think I think as long as the platform is flexible enough to adopt, right? This is has extendability built in. There really should not be any scenario that should not be able to be automated, right? We've seen different technology stacks in bigger organizations, from mainframe to green screen to still Java Swing based thick client applications to the most modern Angular Google platform dynamic UI applications. Pretty much at the end of the day, it's a technology stack, and if the platform's built flexible enough to adopt to that technology stack, I don't see a reason why it cannot be automated. I've seen some exception scenarios, maybe not in this typical technology stack world, but maybe more along the lines of hardware testing or chip testing, where automation has to be a little bit more kind of uniquely handled when it comes to real device testing, right? And even in real device, I don't mean mobile devices, right? More of hardware testing, right? But from a typical software testing standpoint, I would say that if the platform is built in a way that it can adopt, there should really be no exceptions.
I'd like to add in here as well, MB. Sorry for pitching in every answer, because the questions have been so interesting. I can't resist myself to speak on that.
Okay, please.
I think there are certain. I think we have been seeing this industry, and we get to see that manual testing as well as automation testing, both of these testings are existing in unison. Like automation testing is not something new that has evolved in the market. It has been there since decades. And we see manual testing is running along with the automation testing. If automation testing would have been able to perform all the scenarios that would have been there in manual testing, then I think the scope of manual testing would have been eliminated. Now, I'll give you certain examples. So let's say when you gather the requirement from the customers, if you are making a project for them, you would basically start with requirement gathering. And when you create a software, you can check whether all the requirements that were there are being met properly or not. For that, you need a manual intervention in between. When you talk about the design, I've created a design and I just want to see the user experience. At that time, designer would basically see how website looks like. Now we can perform visual testing using the automation. That is something which is possible that could be incorporated in automation. But what about looks and feel? Will visual testing enable us to see whether the result that is there is exactly what gives the user, with what enhances the user experience more, and is it giving the proper or the desired result? For that thing, I think designers are very creative folks, so they would have to intervene there as well, just to check that everything is on the track.
Okay. Yeah. So Kya, you want to say something? Means you were jumping to this, answering this question.
I think I'm good for now. Yeah. Please.
Okay. So if you're good, I have another question for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this guy, he's asking, using codeless will validate the IVR, then UI. Excuse me. He said that my project, we will call to IVR system, then we'll get SMS URL based on, we'll do some Salesforce UI. So this scenario will support any tool.
See, as far as like Testsigma is concerned, like this, we do support all this end-to-end scenarios about what you have explained, right? And like you can send an SMS, you can send an email, and then read the content and then validate that. Voice recognition is something that you'll have to customize, but that's purely as Guljeet said, right? And if you have that potential to extend the platform, right, and it is still possible, and we have done that as well. But yes, so you can do it as long as the platform allows you to extend, and for all these such complex cases. And Testsigma has done that before already.
Okay. So Next question, I let Jonas, if you can help to answer this. When we write the automated test and launch them, we can measure code coverage by different tools, libraries. So does codeless tools have the feature like that?
That's an interesting question. Yes, I think they do. It depends on the codeless tool. So I actually not sure which codeless tool do support code coverage, but in the end, it's more of a test coverage. So how many tests you've written, and it also, like, code coverage per se is hard to measure in a completely codeless approach, but I think it's possible if you have enough data of the underlying system. So it also depends, like, if the system is built in a way that you can access all of, like, different kind of code or test coverage measures and define them. But I think, I'm not sure if you actually want to do it, but rather talk about maybe test coverage in the first place, and then measure that. And you can do that with codeless tools. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we are the end of the discussion, I believe, the time. So let me take one more question from the audience, and then we say, good. Okay, can we have a fast delivery if we choose any of the codeless tool over our conventional way of using the Selenium, Java, Python, and JavaScript? I believe we have already discussed this as a speed, so this might be the answer. Okay, so how can we handle 100% test coverage using the codeless automation?
I can add on to that.
Okay.
So whenever we say 100%, that is something which is an ideal scenario, and I won't think that would be possible, because the basic principle of software testing states that exhaustive testing is not possible. No matter what you do, you won't be able to cover 100% test scenarios. Now, does it mean you would be leaking on your code, leaking bugs to production? The answer is no. There's another principle of software testing that might be of interest to you, and that is known as defect clustering. That principle states that 80% of the defects come from 20% of the modules, which means there are critical modules in every application that might be the home for the defects. So basically, you can ensure that you are performing all the corner edge cases or test cases. You are running these test cases across on those critical modules, and you can cover other modules as well. But just to answer this simply, you can tend towards confirming that you are not leaking any defect onto production, but you can never be sure on that part.
Okay. So one more question. Let Guljeet help to answer this. Okay. So this guy said the nice point, and by the panelist, I agree that the codeless tool can directly assess the tester, so assisting the tester. So he want to understand, means to evaluate any codeless tool, what are the points someone need to look into that?
I think that's probably the best question we've gotten so far, right?
Yeah.
There's so much noise in the market. There's so many in the market. Technology stack would be a good place to start, right? What are your core technology stack that you're trying to handle, and if there are certain ones which align better than others, right? But I would say, go back to the principles, go back to the basics, right? What makes the outcome of a codeless tool, or any tool for that matter, successful? At the end of the day, you want your automation to be robust, right? You want it to be sustainable, right? So you want, if you build a bridge without putting work in its design, the bridge is going to fall, right? So evaluate the tool from that standpoint. How much depth does it have to align with the core design principles, so that the outcome of that, your automation is robust, is sustainable, it's something which can scale up without breaking your bank, right? How much it can handle real world complexities, as opposed to just the high level kind of gimmicky record and playback. So I think those are some of the good places to start. And then obviously you want to see how unified it is in terms of bringing all the different process areas together, right? Whether it be kind of upstream or downstream process area, meaning reporting, governance, traceability, test coverage. We talked about a lot of other things. But I would start at the core principles and then kind of build from there in terms of how's the best way to evaluate. But yeah, proof is in the pudding, so try it out. Whatever tool you're looking at, give it a try, and that's the best way.
Okay, thank you, Guljeet. So
Sure.
I have got one question we got from audience for Oliver. So Oliver, he's asking, can you give a use case on the API Codeless?
Yes, if I'm talking now about REST API. So if you have an application which has what I mentioned already, because it's a real world example, actually, you have an application with REST API. So if you're going to use tools and you're able to use standards like OpenAPI, you can, instead of scripting that manually, you can use tools like Postman, Talam, sometimes other tools like Karate or something like that. And then you don't have to write all the tests manually. You can automate the complete process. And that is what I meant earlier with shift left testing. You can test from the very beginning, and you don't have to write the tool can analyze the setup, the API, and the parameters through OpenAPI, and then you get all 100 QA tests with one tool and with one run. So you have much less work to do, and you speed up development with it.
Yeah. Thanks for giving the answer for this question. I believe we got this. So before binding up this session, means I have very last question, I would say, from the audience, even that was also in my mind. So he's our continuous or from the audience list, or I must say the active one. So he's saying the mostly I heard the benefit of the automation is reduce human errors. So how is it correct? Because the code is already done by the human to automate any case or the building the tool. So is there any possibility like your code is 19% error free and the case I clicked errorless?
This is again a very funny question. He has got that gap which was there. He just stated that the code was written by humans, so how it can be error free. So I completely agree on to that part. If human is writing the code, that's why we are making a switch to codeless automation. As human is involved, there would be some amount of error that could be there. It won't be completely error prone. But let's speak about a situation when we are manually performing a test. And this is a login test, and you need to perform it for 1,000 scenarios, or 1,000 single scenario for 1,000 test data. So that is quite more prone to error as compared to this single test case which is being recorded or which you are writing for performing this thing. Because once you know that this script that you have written or that you have recorded is working fine for one of your test case, now it's a computer's job to take all the data from the data source. It could be a CSV, it could be Excel file, it could be an external database. So rather than doing this monotonous task all alone, let's say I'm logging in using my credentials, and rather than typing my name as Bhagyesh, I was just thinking of one of my friend and I typed his name. So this is what the human error could do, and computers won't be thinking bi-directionally. They would be focused on only a single task. Even if they are doing multi-programming, multitasking, they won't be giving you any errors as such.
Yeah. So what, Guljeet, you want to add something on this or care?
No, I think the case for automation has been made for a long time. If anything, I think we need more automation in every aspect of our technology, right? So, and I think like Bhagyesh probably shared a lot of cases. It's good.
Thank you. So yeah, so this is what we are end of this discussion, guys, and I really appreciate your time and efforts and such a nice insight of the things which you have discussed here. And thanks to audience as well for asking so many questions. And still we have some question which is in a Q&A box, and don't worry, we are going to answer those later. So we have taken a backup of those questions. So thanks everyone sharing this stage with me, and thank you all, and all the best. Take care, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you,
everyone.
Manish.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
everyone.
being such a lovely audience. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so that concludes our panel discussion. Thank you all, everyone, for being here, especially our panel speakers. Now it is time for us to move to the next session. All right, so basic reminders for all of you. If you're watching from a mobile device, please be sure to switch over to your desktop device for the best experience. And remember, for the quiz sessions, do prepare your phones and the QR code scanner so that you can scan the QR code when the quiz sessions come. All right, I will now end the webinar, which will teleport all of us back to the lobby, and we'll all get the chance to go to our next session, which will be presented by our speaker, Prachi. All right, see everyone in the next session. Bye-bye.